I think I'm prepared
Okay.
for anything.
I love it, man. Cameron, great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for having me, Joe.
Yes, sir. So let's begin our journey into your work by asking you this. The pandemic, 5 years ago, so many things changed about
Hmm.
everything that we did. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced the way that you do things today?
That's a great question. I was actually right when the pandemic happened. I was in the middle of working on a film. It was called Black Hole, and it was going to be like a feature length, independent, romantic psychodrama sort of thing. I had written it, I was directing it, I was playing the lead role, and I usually make films with pretty low to no budget, and I usually really only work with like friends of mine. Everyone kind of works for free. It's just kind of we just like doing it.
Yeah.
This one I was putting a little bit of money into, and I was actually doing a formal casting process, and I hired some out of town people, like a couple actresses from Los Angeles. And so I had just got to shoot maybe like the middle third of this film, and I had like a whole production set up for the next month or two to finish it. And then the pandemic happened, and I could go into what happened in that middle third of the movie we got to shoot. I was not happy with the experience, and that's super rare for
Yeah.
me. I've been doing video stuff since I was like 11, and I had a really bad time with this actress that we flew out here. And so, anyway, the pandemic kind of shut that down for me, and I actually immediately got to work on music. In that first week, I made an album. I have a rap character called Camboy Smith that I've had since I was like 16 years old,
Yeah.
and I made an album called Camronavirus, and I made 7 tracks in 7 days and put it out immediately. And then I made another album the following month called the Bad Boy album. But during that time that I was making that music, I had looked back on what we had shot for that film, and I was like, I don't like this. I want to throw this project out, which again is a very rare thing for me to do. And it was definitely an acceptance of losing a good chunk of money.
Yeah.
But I hated it, and I didn't want to do any more for it. And I was so to really answer your question, I know this is very long winded, but
Oh, no, it's good.
music is really what I gravitated towards to make sense out of what was going on. Because especially those first two albums, I wasn't even getting. Obviously, I lost my job. I was working in a restaurant, and I was living with my dad's mom right after he had passed away. And I was like literally living in the bedroom and sleeping in the bed that he died in.
Wow.
And so it was a dark, strange period to be isolated and stuck indoors when that was the case for me. And
Wow.
I wasn't getting any, like of the 600 a week checks yet. Like I think it took 2 months for me to start getting those.
Yeah.
So I was in like a scary financial situation, but I was just very music focused to the point where I was blasting beats in my ear in these headphones at full volume for 12 hours a day until I gave myself tinnitus. And, and oh man, that's another story. Just going to the ENT,
Yeah.
asking them to check me out, and they were pissed. They were mad that I was there
Wow.
because of the pandemic. They were like, "Really? There's a pandemic going on. You're worried about your fucking ears, man."
That's crazy, dude. So, did things not work out on the set because of COVID, or was it aside from that?
COVID had nothing to do with the
Okay,
set.
so it was
Yeah,
already, yeah.
it was basically like, COVID was a word in the news, like,
Yeah.
oh, this COVID-19, but it was, no one was thinking shit was about to shut down.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't work because this actress, in my estimation, she's not like a big time actress, but she is used to working on professional film sets. And so when I interviewed her, we got along quite well in our like interviews and FaceTime calls leading up to it, and I was very hopeful about her. And I think she's just used to working on those like professional Hollywood sets where there's like a level of professionalism. Even on like an indie set, there's a level of professionalism that she's used to that like I just am not like, because I want it to feel like it's artist friends hanging out and making art,
Yeah.
not like, hey, we're all professionals and we do this professionally. And like,
Yeah.
I was certainly bending over backwards to a degree, trying to make her comfortable and like, hey, what do you need? You are clearly not having a good time.
Yeah.
And for me, I think the problems manifested as like, it was very clear that she did not trust me as a director, did not understand the vision, wasn't really open to understanding it, was pretty like passive aggressive and also like super gaslighty and like denying that she's like causing problems. And that in itself is like even more of a problem because now you can't even have a conversation about like how to move forward.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was just drama that just
Gotcha.
unfolded. And like, I'm not used to that because I'm used to working with people I know or friends. And like, I've worked with people who I don't necessarily like all that much outside of, making art with them. But like, still, even with those people, I've had a great time and like had laughs and made great work.
Yeah.
So it was just such an anomaly in
Anomaly.
my,
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. So let's fast forward to 2025, and I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds at career day, and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you answer that child?
well, young man, uh, for money, I work in my mom's restaurant and I wait tables. And I only have to do that about half the week. And it's a good job. There's certainly, for a restaurant job, it's a wonderful job. I make decent money, but I don't care about that job. I don't love it. The things I care about and am passionate about are my filmmaking, my music, and comedy. I have not really engaged in stand up in the last couple of years because it's not fun for me right now. And so I've been very focused on, music more recently, but the past couple of years, I have been working on a documentary series called The Loneliest Boy on Earth. And I am confronting a lot of personal issues with this documentary and particularly trying to focus on telling the truth in a way that may be wildly uncomfortable and even a little bit dangerous for myself and those who are involved in my life story.
So did you always want to do this with your life when you were 12? What was your dream gig? What did you want to be?
Well, 12 is kind of around the time, I think it was actually like 10 or 11 that I got the idea to start making videos. Um, and I got my grandparents to buy me a video camera for my like elementary school graduation gift. And so I just made dumb, funny videos with my friends. And I didn't question it. Like, I didn't think consciously, like, I am an artist. I am a creative person. I didn't think any of that. I just liked making videos. And that was how I started enjoying having a good time. And so I think there was some sort of fantasizing about where that could go. Like, oh, I want to be, an actor one day, or I want to be like I want to continue making films on like a bigger scale, or making TV shows or cartoons or anything like that. And then that expanded to music and stand up. So I think it's just been like this kind of expansive, like my vision of success. I think, like, again, to talk about the 12-year-old perspective, I think there was an intuition of this, but now as a grown man, I can articulate I don't really want fame and money for the sake of fame and money. I want to be like famous enough to where I can monetize the art that I genuinely enjoy making
Yeah.
to a point where I can live comfortably and I don't have to do a job that's normal and that I don't find fulfilling.
Yeah. So who were early inspirations? Who like films,
Mm.
music, comedians, who really impelled and influenced the way that you went after your career?
Well, I think like some of my earliest influences, like when I was quite young, I got into Family Guy at a really early age, and then into South Park. So those largely shaped kind of like my sense of humor, and also just kind of like being a bit edgy. And South Park, they're particularly like innovative and good at satirizing. I think satire is kind of like my baseline sense of humor, like almost standing in a place where like, hey, of course I have opinions as a person, but they really don't matter that much. And I kind of just like being this blank slate that's willing to take on or make fun of anything. And then that evolved into things like Eastbound and Down or Curb Your Enthusiasm. I love Louis C.K. and his show Louis. Um, and I got really into David Lynch in college. Tim and Eric have had a huge impact on like me just developing a very weird sense of humor, just kind of like off the wall, like nonsensical sense of humor, anti humor really. Yeah, so I mean, my influences are kind of all over the place, but they're largely uh, comedy oriented.
Yeah. So, who's been just like in your life, who's been that heroic inspirational force that's allowed you to create and go after your vision and this dream that you have?
So I think there's two major influences. That one, I think when I got into David Lynch in college, um, I was in a very dark place, and I think his films really intrigued me because they were extraordinarily unique and well made, and they made me feel all sorts of strange, conflicting emotions all at the same time. I found them to be very uniquely complicated, and I was drawn to them beyond my own ability to articulate it. And then when I looked into him as a person, I hear him speaking about transcendental meditation. And at the time, what he was saying about it felt like I needed that, because he's talking about negativity and anger and sadness and all this like stuff being lifted from just this simple meditation technique. And that felt like I was like, I'm kind of at a place where I feel like my back's up against the wall and there's no hope, and I'm very nihilistic and negative and pessimistic. And it kind of gave me a little spark of hope. And I also feel like when he talks about creativity, he was saying things and articulating things um, in a way that I had never heard articulated before, but I have believed my whole life. And I think it's really kind of this freedom of creativity. It's this sort of creative integrity. Like, do not let money poison the creative process. Like, you have got to protect the vision. Money is constantly polluting the art that's out there because people just want to make something that's fast and quick and watered down so that everyone loves it and it's inoffensive. But like, you know, the human being's creative capacity has unique depths that are often not tapped into because of the fear of losing money or people not understanding it or not loving it or accepting it. Like, you have to focus on creative integrity. So that was a big keystone for me. And then I think on top of that, this is not an art influence, but I started getting interested in like philosophical influences. And as controversial as some people find them, Jordan Peterson was a huge made a huge impact on me, kind of in the wake of this meditative consciousness awakening for me. And he was really helping me. Like, I was taking in all sorts of self help books, and like some self help books, as I'm sure you know, can be really shallow, like helpful and positive, but like kind of shallow and not very robust ideologies to actually contend with how damn complicated the world and life is. And I found his to be self help books that kind of did contend with the actual complexities of life and like, accepting, yeah, life is really difficult. But you can really learn to revel in that difficulty. And you can make the best out of it, and you can work hard. And like, I know things seem tough, but you're a hell of a lot tougher than you think you are. And so I think there's so many ideas that I think I absorbed from him, that are almost like pretty fundamental. But I don't think you hear articulated that well and explain the value of that well that often in our modern day. And he was saying, I think, a lot of things that young men such as myself really needed to hear, especially like I didn't really have a good, solid, strong father figure in my life. So there was kind of this void to hear a lot of the things that he was saying. So yeah, I would say kind of David Lynch opened me up and Jordan Peterson set me straight is
Yeah,
really the answer to that.
dig it. I love Lynch. So let me ask you this. And one thing I did learn about Lynch after he passed, Moby has a podcast and he was good friends with him. When he did his paintings, he primarily did them all in black and white, maybe a little bit of red, but I
Mm.
had no idea. It's which is just totally intriguing because his early films were black and white. But I would just figure with the way his mind works with color that he would have used color, but it was all black and white.
Yeah, I haven't seen a ton. Like I used to have a bunch of David Lynch paintings as like my backgrounds on my desktop. I loved how strange and like almost horrifying they are, but also how stripped down and like almost childlike they are at the same time. And yeah, I've never really noticed the whole black and white thing, but now
Yeah.
that I think of it, yeah, he did a lot of pretty straightforward, just black and white
Yep.
scribble,
Uh-huh.
like almost like violent scribbling.
Yeah.
But yeah, every once in a while you get a tiny little color pop, usually red.
Yeah.
But yeah, not a whole lot of color in his
Yeah.
paintings.
No. So let me ask you this. What is the motivation for you every day to wake up and to create, to continue to push, to continue to keep this dream moving? What is that for you? Not only for your dream, but to take care of your soul every day. What's that energy for you?
Well, I feel like there's maybe like a very deep existential understanding that I again maybe have unconsciously always had, but am now at the point where I can consciously articulate. Uh, I I don't want to be alive if I'm not creating. And like I know that on a deep level. Um, I've learned through meditation to appreciate the non-doing and doing nothing and just looking at a flower and enjoying the fresh air. Um, but I do think that there is a deep sense of urgency I have to not waste the little time I have because I don't know when it's over and I really want to do as much as I can in that time. So that's that on like a large scale, but then on like a micro level it's going to be whatever it is that I'm working on. It's not only that I have to pick something to work on or find something to work on that is actually challenging enough and fulfilling enough and exciting and fun enough for me to work on, but it's also like if I have made a decision to work on something, I have to, the same way I would use my creativity to make the thing, I've also got to use my creative capacities to come up with a process that does all that keeps it fun, that keeps it engaging, keeps it challenging, and also keeps it meaningful. Because I think I've had a more surrealist, Dadaist type era in my art making where I was really kind of just out to just make a bunch of stupid nonsense that was just funny to me, and now I don't find that fulfilling enough. So I have to go a bit deeper than that. I still like doing absurd funny stuff that seems to have no point, but it's more like seasoning rather than the whole cake.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I mean, I think that's it. It's constantly growing and trying to live on that edge of challenge and excitement and fun.
So when did you, what was the first moment that you created something and you got a reaction from somebody and knew that this was your path in life? You have a visceral reaction and that feeling inside of you. Do you remember, did you have a moment like that early on in your life?
Mm. I don't know if I I don't know um if I've had a moment that quite fits that for me. I think I've had a lot of moments where like small moments like that I don't think hit me quite as profoundly, like, oh, I know this is my path. But I think maybe a big moment for me that I found really fulfilling that kind of fits that mold is when I was in my first or second year of college. There's a local film festival in Wilmington called Cucaloris Film Festival, and I had a friend that I knew through like stand up comedy that was working on this visual sound walls event there, which basically it's a ton of screens that they put up on the wall, like screens and projectors, and they play like 2 hour mix of music videos, and then they have like lights and visual DJs, like making it, it's kind of like this dance rave type thing. But anyway, he knew I made music, and he asked me to submit one of my music videos so they could include it. And so I got into the film festival that year, and I got to like bring friends of mine along that I like, my high school friends that I made these dumb videos with, and like we got these kind of all access passes, and we're doing this we're on this yacht at midnight having brunch, like that was one of those events, and we're just sitting at the table as like 19-year-olds, and I'm like, isn't this kind of funny that we're getting to experience this with the stupid shit that we make? Like this is kind of cool. And in that same festival, um they did this 10 by 10 challenge that they asked me to join, where they take 10 local filmmakers and pair them with 10 local businesses, and you have the length of the festival, which is about 4 or 5 days, to team up with this business, figure out what their business is, and make a little short film for them. And then on the last day of the festival, we screen all the short films. And so what people all, like the other 9 filmmakers, all kind of did was they make these little short documentary spotlights, pretty straightforward, like this is the business, here's some B-roll, here's some talking heads where they're explaining the business. So you have this like Sunday 4 p.m. screening in the theater where it's just a bunch of documentary spotlights, and then right in the middle of it you have the video I made for Elsewhere Art Museum in Greensboro. And I just did this absurd sketch comedy thing where these guys are like deep throating hot dogs and shitting in the toilet, and like it's just this nasty over the top sketch comedy that is so out of place. And watching that with a room full of people like getting horrified, or like laughing really hard, like it was such a mix of reactions because it was so inappropriately placed and out of left field, that is kind of a moment of like, yeah, I'm seeing kind of what my thing is. It's not um it's not so much like, oh, it's just shock humor that's my purpose, but it's I really like the whole performance art, kind of like the humor isn't just in the context, or the humor isn't just in the content of what I've made. The humor is also in the context in which it is presented.
Yeah.
And that I think carries over into a lot of my work. I really like, and it's also one of the things I really like about David Lynch and the way he blends narrative filmmaking with kind of experimental techniques, is that when you have someone that's like purely an experimental filmmaker, it's kind of like you're just watching something that's hard to watch, and maybe it's really unique, or maybe even cacophonous, like it's just like hard on the eyes, you can't follow anything, nothing makes sense, it's just purely a visual experience. And then with a pure narrative, if you have something that's just like super conventional, okay, fine, I followed that, I had a fine time, and then I wrapped up at the end, everything makes sense, great. But he kind of does this thing where he gives you just enough narrative to like uh get your brain thinking about where it can go and what might happen, or idea, like getting your own creative faculties working. But then he just pulls the rug out from under you, where it's like, no, you could have never expected this, or how strange is this twist, or like you just cannot predict a David Lynch film first time watching it.
Yeah.
And that's what I really love. I think it's that unpredictable element that really is almost like a keystone or like a thesis for me, that it keeps me like, how can I keep things fresh? And sometimes, you know, in the context of my body of work, I've found it really interesting in this last like era or so. People are expecting nasty, dirty, wild stuff from me, and I've hit them with some very like pure hearted, like soft love songs, and like some just like, hey, this is who I am kind of stuff. Lately, like, wait, where's the joke? Like, you know, and so like that can, in that context, even that watered down safe space can kind of be a surprise.
So speaking of who you are, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I don't uh I don't often think about it. I think I do certainly consider how various people perceive me, and I think I play with that. But in terms of like what I think of myself, it's almost like it's a question that kind of doesn't matter too too much to me. Um, I I think I at least think I'm a complicated person. Like I don't think like, oh, I am a good man or I am a bad man. I think I am like every human being, and I have a yin and yang inside me. I think there's an awful side of me, and I think that there are redeeming qualities to myself. And I aim to lean into the good qualities, and maybe try to minimize the bad qualities that I'm aware of. But you know, I think that it also gets into the whole psychological like shadow suppression territory, and I'm very weary about like, can you really gut out all your entire bad side without it unconsciously coming up from the depths and taking over every once in a while? I think you might be kidding yourself if you think you can.
Yeah, for sure. So, if anybody wants to delve further into your world, they want to look at your work, your latest project, any of the good business, where's the best place for people to go?
Right now, I would recommend they go to the loneliestboyonearth.com. Check out my most recent documentary series. Or you can go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Cameron Smith Films.
Okay. I will put all of those links in the show notes. Cameron, thank you, man. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time, and best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Of course, Joe. Thank you very much. I had a great time talking to you.
Yes, sir. Me too. Thank you.